Hey everyone, Matt Beamer here with In the Marbles Weekly Racing Podcast, getting you ready for the Goodyear 400 today at Darlington. Throwback weekend should be a lot of fun. We'll get you everything that you need to know for today's race, such as fantasy picks, DraftKings picks, and a whole lot more. Let's get into it.
This is a production of ITM Media.
Yes, if you're joining us from the Unhinged Sports Network, this is the first time we are going to be on YouTube bringing you Race Day Unhinged. I'm Matt Beamer, host of In the Marbles Weekly Racing Podcast for the Unhinged Sports Network, and I am flying solo today, but I had a very eventful night tonight. Matt was able and privileged to meet Mike from the Blind Spotting NASCAR podcast. He's with us regularly on this show, doing 5 off, 5 on with Andrew and Travis from Blind Spotting. Preston's not here today, but rest assured we are getting ready for today's Goodyear 400 from the Darlington Raceway Throwback Weekend. Folks, if you're a NASCAR fan or have never been to a NASCAR race, this is definitely a bucket list event for any race fan. I would say top 3 being Daytona, Darlington, and Martinsville in that order. I've been to 2 of the 3 of them, hopefully maybe going to Martinsville this fall. We'll wait and see on that one. But thanks for everybody for showing up here. You're going to hear me rambling on for the next 45 minutes to an hour about the Goodyear 400. It's going to be a lot of fun, a very exciting day today. Can't wait for it. And I hope everybody's doing well out there. If we're going to be at the track. Preston and I will be at the track. Make sure to follow us on social media platforms. If you're watching us on YouTube, our social media handles will be at the bottom of the screen. And if not, wait till the end of the show. I'll tell you how you can follow In the Marbles and the Unhinged Sports Network on all social media platforms. But I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of the Darlington Raceway. It's going to be race number 12 today, the Goodyear 400 Throwback Weekend. Like I said at the top of the show, 293 laps, which will make up 400 miles. Last year, they ran it for the first time, 400 miles, since it's been a few years. And Jimmy Johnson won it prior to the last year. Last year, Kevin Harvick won it. It was kind of a COVID-related thing, reason why they brought back the 400-mile race. And now they got Throwback Weekend that used to be on Labor Day weekend for the Southern 500, taking place for the Mother's Day race for the 400-mile event. Either way, it's going to be Throwback Weekend. Going to be a lot of fun, a lot of nice paint schemes out there. Always a fun to look back down the memory of NASCAR, and this is the race to do it if you're out there watching it for the first time. A lot of fun. If you're just getting into the sport, it'll teach you a lot about the history of the sport, and there's no really better way to watch a race, in my opinion, than being at the race, which Preston and I will be at. I'm so excited. And again, if you're there, let us know. Come have a beer with us, and we'll talk racing. It's going to be a lot of fun. Darlington opened up in 1950, so this is going to be 71st year of operation for that historic speedway. A lot of history at that track. The Goodyear 400 used to be known as the Rebel 400. Good luck getting that name to fly anytime in this day and age, but it used to be known as the Rebel 400, and that was from 1957 to 1965. And David Pearson has the most wins in the Goodyear 400 at 7, and the most wins at that track overall at 10. Defending champion, like I said, Kevin Harvick, during the COVID pandemic when they came back and raced back-to-back at Darlington. No rain expected in the forecast. I'll get more into that later on in the show. But now we're going to get into our starting lineup for today's Goodyear 400. On the pole, you have Brad Keselowski, and starting next to him in the second position will be Kevin Harvick. So a couple Fords occupying the front row. In row 2, you got 2 Joe Gibbs Toyotas and Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. Row 3 is going to be Hendrick Chevrolets and William Byron and Chase Elliott. Row 4, Denny Hamlin, Matt DiBenedetto, and row 5, rounding out the top 10, Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick. So a lot of teams up there expecting to run 4, and that's such a crazy lineup here. So a lot of teams up there in Penske, Stewart-Haas. Really, Stewart-Haas, Kevin Harvick's the only one up there, if I could read it right, and I am reading it right. A lot of Penske organizations up there, and Matt DiBenedetto and Brad Keselowski. But Richard Childress Racing, Hendrick Motorsports, and Joe Gibbs Racing has a plethora of cars up there. Expect all of them to be up front, running up front all day. And here are the ones to watch out for in the top 10. Brad Keselowski, he's going to be starting first. He has a win there in the Southern 500 a few years ago. Expect him to run well all day. He always runs well at that track, keeps the fenders on the car, and he knows how to preserve the tires and run a clean race. He runs his race. really no one could really stop him if he's in the groove and doing really well. But it's a 400-mile race on an abrasive surface. Tires are going to be everything. We'll get more into that in a second. And Kyle Busch, starting third. He was last week's winner. So now he's got that pressure off of winning a race and locking himself in the championship playoffs. But starting with 18 starts, he has one win there. Average finish of 11.2. This is one of his better tracks, but he doesn't win there a lot. But Kyle Busch is someone to watch out for, and I wouldn't mind seeing him win today's race. But Brad Keselowski might pull it off too. In fact, I dare say anybody there in the top 10 has a chance to win it, but then there are people in the back that we have to watch out for, such as in the 14th starting position, Kyle Larson. 6 starts at Darlington, average finish of 6.7. Watch out for Kyle Larson. And on top of that, no DNFs to start off that campaign for Kyle Larson. He's going to be a threat today before the end of the day, I have a feeling. And the last time the 5-car went to victory lane at Darlington was Terry Labonte. I should say before they thought about canceling the Southern 500 entirely and just having the 400-mile race. So that was a very cool thing to see Terry Labonte win that. I think that was back in 2003, if I'm not mistaken. As I said before, fuel and tires are going to be a factor, more so tires and fuel at this track. 11 sets of tires going to be for the Cup Series race cars. 1 set on the car and 10 in the pits, and I guarantee you by the end of the race, all 10 are going to be used. And it used to be, if a car were to wreck out or something, teams would go up there and buy more sets. I don't know if they could do that anymore, but that's something to look out for, and the crew chiefs are going to have to stay on top of that. It's going to be a day race, so the track's going to be hot. It's going to be in the 80s with a 2% chance of rain. So no rain expected in the forecast. If it does, it's South Carolina in the spring. What can you do? It's going to be in the afternoon, maybe a pop-up shower. I don't think so, though. There's a high-pressure system in the area, and I'm no meteorologist, but I must say that's a recipe for a great day of racing. So tires are going to be issued. The track's going to eat up the tires all day. So the crew chiefs are going to have to be on it. Everybody's going to have to be on it in the pits in order to get the lug nuts off, lug nuts on, and down pit road. So expect 4 tire stops. Maybe towards the end of the race, 2 tire stops. Don't hold your breath on that because that might cause them. And we saw in the truck race, 4 tires definitely better than 2 tires, and 2 tires definitely better than no tires. It was a wreck fest in the truck race. Not so much. It was a little more reserved in the Xfinity race, but it's a Cup race, and it's at Darlington, and a very prestigious throwback weekend. Expect anything to happen. Can't wait for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. And before I get into the picks of the race that I have to look out for as far as maybe looking at it, and well, I'm probably going to go into the DraftKings line. We're going to switch it up here. Before we get into our DraftKings lineup and fantasy picks, we're going to listen to a Teespring ring and a few from the Unhinged Sports Network. If you're listening to us on there, this is Race Day Unhinged, getting you ready for the Goodyear 400. We'll be right back after this. Folks, we're going to take a quick second here and break from the show and remind everybody out there about In the Marbles online store at Teespring. There you can find all of your In the Marbles gear that you need, such as t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and much more. Show everybody out there, whether it's at the NASCAR races or the local short tracks, that you are a fan and avid listener of In the Marbles. All purchases will help In the Marbles bring you more content in the future. If you just head over to inthemarbles.net under the merch tab, there you will find the link to Teespring, or you can head over to teespring.com/stores/inthemarbles, and there you will find our online store. And during the month of May, if you use code LUGNUT, it will take 20% off your order. So remember, head over to inthemarbles.net under the merch tab, there you will find the link, or teespring.com/stores/inthemarbles. Again, 20% off if you use code LUGNUT for your entire purchase till the end of May. Back here on Race Day Unhinged, exclusively on the Unhinged Sports Network. I'm Matt Beamer, getting you ready for this Goodyear 400 at Darlington. This is going to be my 4th Darlington race, and every one of them hasn't disappointed. I've been to 3 Southern 500s. This is going to be my first 400-mile race from Darlington. But I expect it to be a little more exciting than the regular 500-mile race, only because they have 100 miles less to get the job done. So a lot less racing, a little more action. I would say this is going to be a lot of fun. And if this is your first time watching a race, let us know what you think at Marbles In or on Facebook at In the Marbles. And now I'm going to get you into your DraftKings and fantasy picks for today's race. And the lobby I'm playing under today is the NASCAR 20K Hot Rod 3 entries max. So I think that'll give everybody a better shot in order to win and to put money in there. It's $3 per entry. So up to $9 in order to win a total of $20,000 in prizes. And I think you're going to have a good lineup here. Again, it's going to be $50,000 budget, and you have 6 drivers to fill an entry, and you have to fill all 6 drivers in order to advance and make that entry official. And my number one pick for DraftKings is going to be Brad Keselowski, coming in at $10,000. So there's a fifth of the budget right there. But an average finish of 10.4 with 1 win. And in the year of 2021, so far up to this race, in the first 11 races, 11.8. Very consistent driver, finishes up there in the top 10, already has a win. Expect him, and he's got a win at Darlington already, so expect him to do very well today. Brad Keselowski, number one pick. Number two pick, coming in at $7,800, is the driver to number 21 Wood Brothers Ford, and that is Matt DiBenedetto. Average finish at Darlington of 21st, but so far this year he's been doing very, very well, has a few top 5s under his belt. Average finish at 16.5, and it's a throwback weekend. And there's no better throwback out there than the Wood Brothers Ford, and that driver and those driver combination numbers in the 21 car has been a staple in NASCAR since its early inception. Talk about throwback. If Matt DiBenedetto gets it done today, that will be the I dare say, the decade's most popular win right there. Coming in at number 3 at $8,200, switched teams from Joe Gibbs to Richard Petty this year. Has 1 win at Darlington in the Southern 500. Average finish of this year after 11 races of 22.2, but an average finish of Darlington of 5.2. Driving the number 43 Petty Motorsports Chevrolet, Eric Jones. Now, why do I say this? Another throwback. If Eric Jones gets it done, he's running a John Andretti special paint scheme today. That would be amazing to see. Expect Eric Jones to be up there. He might steal one from everybody, then lock Petty Motorsports into a playoff spot, and that will make it very interesting. And make sure to listen to In the Marbles Weekly Racing Podcast for the post-race, regardless of what happens. But I think Eric Jones would be a popular win this weekend. Coming in at number 4, $7,400. Driving to number 8, Richard Childress Chevrolet of Tyler Reddick. Average finish of 14.3 at Darlington. And this year, running about the same, 17.5. I think he's starting to get a little bit of wind under his sails, get his feet under him and wet as far as competitiveness in the Cup Series. He's starting to figure out the cars, figure out the tracks. And he's running very well this year, better than he did last year starting off. Of course, he didn't really have any chance to practice or qualify or do any of that. He had to just jump in and go. A little bit of a steep learning curve, but that team and that organization is in a whole, as far as Richard Childress is concerned, is doing very well. They're running up there. They're running competitively. They're not wrecking as much as they used to. Tyler Reddick might be a threat by the end of the day. I wouldn't mind seeing that car in victory lane by the end of the day. And speaking of Richard Childress, the number 5 driver is going to be Austin Dillon, coming in at $7,500. Average finish of 12th at Darlington. 13.4 in the season to this point. And I'm just going to reiterate what I said about Tyler Reddick for Austin Dillon. That team's getting better. The wins under their sails, starting to gel a little more. They won a race last year. Can they do it again this year at Darlington? You talk about popular throwbacks. That 3 car in victory lane in Darlington would be a very exceptional throwback for today's race. And coming in 6th with a total of $9,000 as far as the budget. Average finish of 20.4 at Darlington, but the average finish up to this point of the season at 13.6. The driver in the number 12 Penske Ford, Ryan Blaney, not making a lot of waves. Yes, he has 1 win already this year. However, he's just up there. He's just doing his thing, but he's running consistent. You don't see him wrecking. You don't see him putting himself in a position to take himself out of the race. Ergo, Denny Hamlin last week. You don't see that. You see Ryan Blaney running very well as compared to a Denny Hamlin. And again, he has a win already. He's got room to gamble. Why not go for it? For these drivers up here, with the exception of Brad Keselowski and Ryan Blaney, they got wins. They don't have to worry about it. They can roll the dice and maybe take those 2 tires with 10 laps to go and put themselves in the track position to win. Everybody else, Matt Benedetto, Eric Jones, Tyler Reddick, and Austin Dillon, have to play it somewhat aggressive in order to win and win a very prestigious race at Darlington during Throwback weekend. We not only add them into the playoff picture, but add prestige to that in this event as well. And any of those drivers can do it. That is going to be my DraftKings lineup for today's Goodyear 400. And now for my fantasy lineup. Again, this is going to be In the Marbles 2.0 fantasy lineup. Not doing the best, unlike Matt Camper, who's running away with it. I'm in 4th position as a NASCAR guy. I still find that a little bit of an insult right there. But still not having a horrible year. And again, you have 10 times total before the playoffs start in order to pick these drivers, so you got to use them a little bit loosely. You can't just pick Denny Hamlin, or else you're going to lose him by the time the 11th race comes around if you start him at the Daytona 500 and run him all the way through. But I think this is a good solid lineup for anybody, not only if you're within the Marbles 2.0, but regardless of what NASCAR league you're in, this is a good lineup for you guys. My first starter is going to be Brad Keselowski. We talked about him during the DraftKings pick. Very consistent driver at Darlington with that 1 win. Second place, I've seen him win twice at Darlington, 1 in Xfinity and 1 in Cup, Denny Hamlin. And Denny Hamlin, you got to watch out for everywhere. He's right there at the grass, but every time he does, either he has something go wrong or the victory just slips away from his hands. Denny Hamlin's my number 2 starter. 3, Matt Benedetto. We talked about him during the DraftKings lineup. He's a very consistent driver. I think he's going to be running very well throughout the course of the race and maybe even surprise everybody. But I expect him to maybe get a top 5, a good consistent finish if everything falls into place. Maybe contending for a win, but a good solid top 5, I would say, for Matt Benedetto. Number 4, you've had a driver here who's won at Darlington before, knows how to get it done. Kyle Busch. Last week's winner at Kansas, he might do it again in the Palmetto State. We'll just have to wait and see, but he's in my 4th place as a starter for today's Goodyear 400. 5th, Kevin Harvick. I saw him win the Southern 500 last year. Very consistent driver. Different little bit of a dynamic with Stewart-Haas Racing this year vice last year, but Kevin Harvick still might be able to get it done this year at Darlington in the Goodyear 400. Here's hoping. In the garage, I have Eric Jones. He's going to be kind of my dark horse today as far as fantasy, in case anybody up there has a bad run, or he might just have a good run. He might have a better run than Kevin Harvick. Again, you can only use your garage pick before the end of stage 2. After that, it is locked, and you got your driver starting who is starting in the garage pick. Top Toyota is going to be Kyle Busch. Top Chevrolet is going to be Chase Elliott. Top Ford, Ryan Blaney. And I got my race winner being today, Kyle Busch, and that M&M's Toyota. He's going to do it back to back. He wants to get it done, and I think he's finally got all the monkeys off his back and all the stuff fixed off. He's got that weight lifted off his shoulder. He's locked in the playoffs, but Kyle Busch knows how to get it done. He's a winner. He's a competitor. He's my pick to win today's Goodyear 400. Winning manufacturer Toyota and winning team Joe Gibbs Racing, those are all bonus picks. If you get them, great. If not, oh well. But those are points that you could leave on the table very easily. And now we're going to start wrapping up the show here. We're going to get into our expectations for what I expect to happen, why I picked Kyle Busch, and we're going to wrap up the show. Before we wrap up today's show, I wanted to take a moment to remind everybody out there in the Marbles Nation about our partnership with Fanatics. Fanatics is a proud partner of the Unhinged Sports Network, which we here at In the Marbles are the voice of racing. If you head over to inthemarbles.net under the Partners tab, there you will find a link to Fanatics, and it'll take you right to their NASCAR store, where you can find all your favorite drivers' hats, t-shirts, diecast, and more. But you don't have to just stop there. I buy all my Alabama Crimson Tide gear there, and Preston buys all his South Carolina Gamecock gear there as well. All purchases help out the Unhinged Sports Network, bringing you the best sports coverage 24/7 at unhingedsn.com. Make sure to head over to the Unhinged Sports Network to listen to your favorite shows, not just In the Marbles, but all your sports podcast needs, such as football, basketball, hockey, and yes, racing. That's unhingedsn.com. Getting ready to wrap you up for today's 3:30 p.m. Eastern start on FS1. Make sure to note that down. FS1 today, where the race is going to be broadcast on. or on SiriusXM Radio Channel 90 for all your PRN and MRN listeners out there. This is Race Day Unhinged, getting you ready to wrap up everything, getting ready to drop the green flag. Again, Preston and I will be there at the racetrack. Look for the In the Marbles flag. We'll post it on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook for all of those following us on all those websites. Want to take this opportunity real quick to thank the Unhinged Sports Network for what they do and what they do for our show. We got a number of listeners solely on the Unhinged Sports Network. We appreciate every one of you guys, and we hope that this YouTube thing gets off and running. We're trying to, as a network, go towards YouTube. It's a lot of fun trying to figure out all those things. It's a lot of fun trying to do that. And I say it on the show all the time as you listen to our weekly racing podcast. Bear with us, growing pains. But this one, I think, went off without a hitch. A little bit of fine-tuning before the show started, but that goes a long way in the production value. And we hope it's a good one. We hope the graphics are there. And if not, let us know. We're right there at the bottom. As far as social media, right there at the bottom. You can't miss it. If you're watching YouTube, if you're listening to us on the radio, make sure to check out the YouTube. If you'd rather watch us in the marbles on YouTube, we're on YouTube, we're on social media, we're on everywhere. We're everywhere. But thank you all for there. And now my expectations for today's race. It isn't going to be like the truck race where it was a rock'em sock'em race, where it was a demolition derby, where there were red flags there. Could there be a possibility of that? Absolutely. Within 20 laps to go, victories in grasp of everybody in the top 10, it feels like, especially if you're on 4 fresh Goodyear tires. There's an opportunity to win, and drivers will take it no matter what. But tires will be the issue and the driving force behind that. You're going to want those 4 tires. Again, I said it at the top of the show. 2 tires make a difference if you're racing somebody that didn't take tires whatsoever. But 4 tires will always be the way to go and always be the winning combination. Will we see that late race caution? I don't know. I'll be there and just like everybody else, waiting and seeing. But as far as the dynamic of the race, I feel like it's going to be maybe a business as usual race at Darlington. A little more pressure, again, not being 500 miles, but 400 miles. We're used to the Southern 500. That's a long race going into the night. We might see some dusk racing, but depending on how well they run, sunsets around here in South Carolina about 8. So I'm not holding my breath. I expect it to be out on the sun all day. If you're there, make sure you're not just drinking beer. Drink water. But it's going to be a fun day. It's going to be a hot day. It's going to be old school racing as it was back in the day when Darlington was first established in NASCAR in 1950. Going to be a lot of fun. I expect a good race. Again, I picked Kyle Busch to win the race. But let us know down here on social media platforms, on our social media platforms, who you think will win today's Goodyear 400 from Darlington. Again, I got to meet Mike from Blind Spotting NASCAR podcast and his family. Great group of people. Make sure to go check those guys out. They're doing amazing things, and they have access to way more people than we do here in Summerville, North Carolina, since they live in Race City, USA. Blind Spotting NASCAR podcast on all major podcast platforms. Great group of guys. I met Mike and his family. He's in town to see his son play baseball this week and wishing him the best of luck. So I wanted, and there is no 5-off-5 on today because Mike is out of town and Andrew and Travis are busy. We'll probably get him in for Dover. Hopefully we'll get him in for Dover. Dover's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure to tune into our weekly racing platform next week to get all of the wrap-up you need to know, not just for the Cup race, but Xfinity, Truck, and the Formula One race from Spain. We hope everybody enjoys today's show, and we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here for today for Race Day Unhinged. I'd like to thank again everybody so much for tuning in to us this week here at Race Day Unhinged. Make sure to follow In the Marbles on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Links for those can be found at inthemarbles.net or under the show notes for today if you're watching us on YouTube. For Preston Mood, who's not here, the guys from Blind Spotting NASCAR podcast from 5-off-5 on, thank you so much for tuning in to us this week. Stay safe, and we'll see you at the Monster Mile at Dover next week.